of crows swooped out of the blue.
New Icelandic drama, The Valhalla Murders. Coming soon to BBC4 and iPlayer.
A demonstration took place against the police, which degenerated into totally inexcusable violence.
This is a sustained campaign against black people. And today we are saying enough is enough.
In the beginning, I felt unprepared.
It's not about death. It's about life.
People out there are bitter and they want to put evil ideas into your head.
He's a monster loose. I'm not walking away from you.
It's okay to have doubts.
It's not about what it looks like. It's how it makes you feel.
Show me what you got.
New films, new voices. A season of British film premieres continues with Perfect 10. Tomorrow at 10 on BBC Two and iPlayer.
Annie Nightingale on tour with the Police in 1980 in an hour. Now on BBC4, Annie's championed new music, fronted the Old Grey Whistle Test and had her own show on Radio 1 for over 40 years. She's passionate, dedicated, unstoppable. She's a legend.
The music's always been about change. You've got to do something that sweeps away the past. What has kept British music so exciting and refreshing, because someone comes along and changes it all again, and we seem to welcome those changes, which I don't think necessarily happens in other countries. My name is Annie Nightingale. I'm a Radio 1 DJ, and I have been now for 4 decades. I may have done other things in my life, but this film is a personal account of my life in music and of some of the artists I've been passionate about. I'm still crazy about music, and I'm always looking for something new and exciting. Probably once a week, somebody says, what's your all-time top 10? And you think, oh, don't ask me that. That is so difficult. Or what's your favourite tune of all time? I go, well, I might tell you one today, but it would be different from the one last week. And the point is, you're never looking back, you're always looking forward. You haven't got time to look back.
Annie Nightingale. Annie Nightingale on BBC Radio 1.
What happens with most people is their interest in pop music is greatest when they're teenagers, when they're perhaps into their early 20s, and then you have rather more important things to take up your time. For some reason, for me, I've gone on that interest in the new music, the undiscovered, the underground, and seeing it, nurturing it, really.
The length of how long she's been on the radio, 4 decades, and she's still down, she's still cool with it. Just a legend, man.
She gives a lot of people breaks, and she's got the spirit that she's always stuck with the music. You know, she's into what she does, and she's not in any way like a celebrity DJ, is she? You know, she's here for the music. She loves what she does.
I unfortunately was not born with a great singing voice, which is the more embarrassing if your name is Nightingale. And I certainly didn't feel confident enough to become a professional musician, much as I would love to have done it. And so that's how becoming a DJ, appreciating music, playing it, huge enthusiasm for it, and wanting to spread the word to other people. That is how this job happened. It's actually like being on the phone to your friend and saying, I've just heard this great tune, I'd love to play it to you. I want to play it down the phone to you. Have a listen, see what you think. You could be honest to yourself. I don't play anything I don't like. You know, you play a tune until it's peaked. If it's going to be something that's in the charts, and as soon as it's peaked in the charts, then you don't play anymore, because you've got all these other tunes going, please play me. If you have a radio show, or if you have a music column in a magazine or a newspaper, then you'll be deluged, inundated. Everyone wants a review, or everyone wants airplay. My role is just the conduit, get the good music out there. So on what basis do you choose what to listen to? I can't tell you that. If it gets some kind of emotional response to me, that is what you want. Now, what makes an emotional response is very difficult to say. As John Peel rightly said, I just want to hear something I haven't heard before. You're never off duty. I'm at home, I've got, you know, one set up in the kitchen, my deck's in the living room, and then laptop on my bed or something. So I've got all these different tunes all poised to listen to, simply because I want to get to hear everything.
Getting played on the radio in the days pre-internet, getting played on the radio was your bread and butter. That's the only way that people could really hear you, apart from playing gigs. And so getting support from specialist DJs who would play something that wasn't in the charts. Annie and John Peel broke so many bands. They were kind of our only real voice.
She was a great help to Primal Scream in the early days, and she's always championed us, and she's a love, you know, for doing that.
A tune that hasn't got a plugger behind it, or hasn't got money behind it to promote it. This is somebody at the beginning of their career, they can't afford to have. They haven't even got a record deal. They haven't got a big label behind them. How is that going to get played? Who's going to play that? And so that's why the evening DJs on Radio 1 were much more likely to give those tunes an airing, because they weren't playlist material, possibly, and that's where I've always been.
The first time I can remember was when the Stone Roses played at Alexandra Palace, and just after the gig we were on this like fire escape having a crafty smoke, and we saw her go mooching across with Stuart Copeland out of the Police, and I think I give him a bit of cheek or something, and I got a good laugh out of her. But she's always been around and always been very supportive, and she's a great lady. She is the grande dame of Radio 1, man.
This thirst for the new, it's something that came from deep inside me, probably connected with my childhood. Growing up in this post-World War II environment was not at all a bad thing. Obviously, you only have one childhood, so I couldn't compare it with anyone who's grown up in any other era. To me, it was not a bad thing. It was very exciting, because it was a bit like having bonfire night every day. Obviously, people had suffered terribly, but you don't realise that as a small child. I didn't know any different. It didn't bother me in the slightest. It wasn't just for me, it was like that all over the UK. Growing up in Liverpool, can you remember what the landscape was like?
Places we would play, we called bommies. So we're going down a bommy, you know, and then only later you realise you're talking about a bomb site. And then that still didn't click. It was only later you thought, oh, there was a house there and a bomb destroyed it, and now we're playing football on it. One of the other things I remember is you'd see what I now realise was servicemen coming back from the war with shell shock. And you'd see guys walking down the street and they'd be sort of twitching, and you'd say, you know, what's that? What's up with him? And the grown-ups would say, that's shell shock, you know.
Well, when I was growing up, all the relatives were talking about the wars that they'd been through, and I thought, I don't want this to happen again. I don't want to go through what they went through.
I do remember once talking to my dad, and this is probably why I asked the question. I said, do people want peace? And he said, yeah. He said, people everywhere want peace. He said, it's the governments that screw it up.
The 50s, now considered dull and austere, I found really exciting. Mainly due to the sounds coming out of the family radiogram. The radiogram that I remember growing up with was the kind of focal point of the room, and it was from there that this music came out. The first memories I have were violins making me cry buckets, and it still does. I'm terrified. You know, things like symphonies and symphony orchestras, I have to run away because it affects me so much. I don't know why, and it still does. As soon as, you know, the kind of remnants of World War II had gone, we're in the space age.
Американская фирма Transceptor Technology приступила к производству.
This was very, very new and exciting. And also this was the beginning of things like the BBC Radiophonic Workshop and strange sounds coming out of the radio, which were not conventional music and were not orchestras or popular music or crooners or anything. It was like, what is this? I was obviously very, very open to all these sounds, and I still am. And I guess that's why I end up doing what I do. The rebellious and independent streak I'm known for, I'm still really not sure where that came from. I was not approved of at school. I mean, looking back on it, possibly it did build that sense of independence, independent girls-only school. It didn't encourage this very left-field, weird raver person.
Gonna keep her shaking, gonna keep her moving, baby, 'cause you grab my stock and I'm a rewatcher.
When I was 17, despite my parents' wishes, I was hell-bent on doing a journalism course. I think it was the movies that was my other great passion, you know, as a youth, was going to the movies. And it was something like Roman Holiday, in which a journalist was having a really good time. And I thought, well, that looks like a really exciting life. You're running around in sports cars and you're going, hold the front page, and you're on the phone, or you're, you know, chasing criminal, whatever, exposing corruption. It was purely Hollywood fantasy, I suppose, of what I thought a journalist would be.
Come on, baby, let the good time roll.
It was a growing up process. It was as much, you know, a year of leaving school and, you know, experiencing the big wide world, which I desperately needed to do. One of the interesting parts about this college was that every Friday there would be a get-together in the main sort of hall of the Polytechnic on Regent Street. It was like a disco, really. The music wasn't all that great because this was just pre-Beatles, and it was things like Bobby V, Rubber Ball Bouncing Back to You. It was not a very good period of music. And I would notice that in one corner there was this very cool gang, and they were the art school. These people looked amazing, and I thought I'd like to be friends with them. And it took a whole term, I mean, which was a lifetime in those days. I was only doing a one-year course, to be accepted by any of them. Meeting these art students changed everything for me. They opened the doors to a whole new world, from beat poetry to French New Wave films. That became the Beatles' world.
The art school thing was a very important phenomenon. I think it allowed kids like us to think more freely than we'd been encouraged to think to that point, which is like one of the points of art school. You know, you look at a thing and you're going to make an abstract painting of it or a figurative, and it frees your mind up. We'd kind of cobbled together this identity, which was happening anyway amongst the youth. You know, there were like millions of art students who were kind of looking like we look.
My father bought me a little, I'm sure he wished he hadn't afterwards, this very small white, I guess it was called Bakelite radio, which now I had all to myself. I didn't have to share this musical choices with my parents. I could have whatever I like. And that's when one found Radio Luxembourg.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog, you're crying all the time. Well, you ain't never caught a rabbit and you ain't no friend of mine. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire.
This was the opening into this world, this completely different world of different music, which was for teenagers. This generation who were not children and we weren't adults, and it was incredibly exciting. And years later, you know, you hear from The Who and the Rolling Stones and the Beatles that they were also listening to Radio Luxembourg. And that's what brought us all together.
Elvis appeared. Little Richard, Buddy Holly, Jerry Lee Lewis, and all these people we loved. And that was the big shockwave. That was it. It was like...
Take it up, baby, now. Take it up, baby. Twist and shout. Twist and shout. Come on, come on, come on, come on, baby, now. Come on, baby. Come on and work it on out. Work it on out. Work it on out.
Through all these little influences, the whole generation was going through a change. And so that positioned us, that we sort of came on the scene, and everyone just looked and went, yeah, I could do that.
Shortly after my 1 year as a student, and I became a journalist and met somebody who was married. We ran away to Brighton.
Love, love me do. You know I love you.
When the whole beat boom happened, all the bands like the Beatles, they all they toured endlessly. That's how they had to get known. And so, of course, they came to Brighton. And I, by then, had got a job on the local newspaper. And I got to interview anybody I liked. When I saw the Beatles the first time, I clicked. I thought, I know these people. I know these people. They were all like the art students I knew. And I said, famously, I was told that I launched my career by insulting John Lennon, which is not strictly true, but I just said, oh, you're the difficult one then. And he went, you know, and it caught his attention. Going to cover a pop concert or do an interview with a pop star, for some journalists, might have just been part of the job. And they'd be going, yeah, OK, so what's your name, John, George? And they would just, that would be that. I was obviously insanely excited about all this, and to have the chance to meet them and was you know, I was a fan. I felt that rapport because it was an echo of, you know, the people I'd met, the art students I'd met particularly, with that attitude and that kind of really irreverent attitude that you had not had that in show business before. Although I was still living in Brighton, I started writing music reviews for London-based newspapers and magazines.
I see a red door and I want it painted black.
I started working in Fleet Street on a national paper, and I have a column in the now derided Daily Express, and another paper which doesn't exist anymore called the Daily Sketch. So I became the pop columnist. There weren't music journalists really, apart from those at NME and a Melody Maker. But working on sort of local and national papers, there weren't really people who specialised because it had only just begun. I was excited by That Was the Week That Was, by Satire, by Private Eye, Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, Beyond the Fringe. That was all part of how society was completely changing. And the Beatles were the kind of the musical reflection of that, when they just reflected this groundswell of change and excitement that this young generation were bringing. Also, it didn't matter what background you came from. It didn't matter if, you know, if you had a working class accent. In fact, now it was suddenly deemed to be brilliant to come from Liverpool. A lot of things were possible, and they were possible for young people who hadn't had good education. That's why it's so important. Social Road opened up the world to a lot of people, and the opportunities just got in there and got on with it. I felt I had to contribute something to this because you could feel it was changing everything. Part of this social revolution that was happening, so it was happening in television and it was happening with music, but we still had the BBC, who were not keen on all this pop music. And then along came a pirate ship playing pop music in international waters, so therefore not restricted by any British laws.
Hey, Papas and Finger Papas, we're going to do the thing right here with the Emperor Roscoe on Caroline South.
Along with Radio Caroline, other pirate radios also broadcast from international waters. I mean, it's a brilliant idea. They changed everything because they were playing brilliant, I mean, great tunes all day long.
Wonderful Radio London.
Luxembourg, it was only, I think, on in the evenings or something, but this was all day long. And it was a sort of American-style radio, and it was helping all the young music. It was just another part of this youth revolution that was affecting all areas. And it was just hugely enjoyable, and it was just a feeling that you could do anything you wanted to do. The opportunities were there.
My generation, I hope I die before I get old. My generation, baby.
Go on, have a go. You may well be able to do it. Don't be afraid to try something. The opportunities were there.
Try and dig what we all say.
The first opportunity I had to do a bit of radio was actually a little unmanned studio inside the Royal Pavilion in Brighton, which may still be there. And it was sort of automated studios. There was nobody else there except me. And I had to put these headphones on, and then somebody would speak to me who was in Bristol or somewhere. And once I started doing it, it felt great. I thought, this comes naturally to me. Having seen Broadcasting House every day when I was at Regent Street Polytechnic, I never imagined that I would end up working there because it was this kind of part of the establishment. Then again, I couldn't really see myself at sea with the pirates either. But then they got shut down, and the BBC started their own pop station, Radio 1, in 1967.
Radio 1, good time music. Right.
Right, and it is 3 minutes past the hour of 1 o'clock on a Monday afternoon.
Radio 1 had begun, and it was all male. And I was quite more than shocked to hear that, no, women. Disc jockeys are husband substitutes. This is what they said. I couldn't believe it. And therefore, they don't want women broadcasting.
There's nothing you can do that can't be done.
It's ridiculous. What was so special about this pop radio station that it could not, it had to be male only? I just didn't get it. I couldn't understand it. It didn't make any sense to me at all. By now, I was becoming quite a feminist. I had a column on Cosmopolitan magazine. I was feel quite strongly about feminism generally. And so I couldn't understand it, so I'd write attacking them. And so eventually, I think they thought, we'll have to have one. Who do we know?
Annie Nightingale, BBC Radio 1.
And so I became the token woman. Then they went, can you work a desk? And go, what do you mean? What do you mean, work a desk? What does that mean? And because I hadn't thought about that, I thought, you speak in the microphone, somehow the music just gets played and that's it. But it's a whole technical aspect of it, which was actually far more, that was intimidating, because you had this whole, like a recording studio, all these faders, and thinking, well, I don't know how that would work. And this was the big problem. And then the very first show I did, I stopped the record that was actually being broadcast, because I thought, I'll do something useful. Well, half doing the desk, half me and half the producer. So I thought, well, that's just going round and round. Why don't I just do something useful, stop it? And it stopped, but it didn't just stop. It ground slowly to a halt. 8 seconds of dead air, which is a lifetime. So that was quite a tough learning curve. My first show at Radio 1 after the sort of tryouts was kind of in the middle of the afternoon, and there were very great restrictions on playing records. It was called needle time. So we had nothing like you have today when you have a pop station playing music 24 hours a day. That didn't exist. There were very strict rules about it. So other hours were given to, it was a loophole really, so it was like reviewing records. So and they said to me at one point, the only reason we've accepted you here is because you're a journalist. So not really a proper DJ. I was a journalist who'd been allowed in. But it meant that I could do a show where we would play new records and say, this is a new one by whoever it was, and it's on this label, and the number is so-and-so, rather than you're going, hey, everybody, have a good time, bang, 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 you know. Sort of, it was a device so we could fill the airways with more new music. Certainly in the UK, certainly at Radio 1, you're either a specialist DJ who plays music of your own choice, you bring the music with you, or you're a daytime presenter who plays the playlist, and you don't have any free choice or very little. Whether they intended me to be a daytime DJ, I don't know, because Radio 1 was still, relatively young, but I noticed that people on in the evening were able to play more adventurous music. So I said, I want to be on in the evening. And they went, oh, OK then. Because it seemed to me that you were more, again, underground. You could play more underground music. There was still a very chauvinistic attitude. And in those days, there'd be an engineer through the glass. And so they could talk to me on the talkback, and they'd be going, oh, this is rubbish, isn't it? And I'd be, yes, but these are all tunes that I'd personally chosen. So I thought it was an insult to the music, and it would drain you any confidence that you were building. It was years and years of that, but it took me a huge amount of time. I didn't have any problem with talking about the music or any of that, but it was a technical side. It was I had this woman driver complex, and the feeling that they were waiting for me to make some very big mistake. And of course, people made mistakes. It didn't matter, actually. Then television started exploding, and we had a programme called Ready, Steady, Go, which is one of the best pop music programmes ever. And the editor of it was Vicky Wickham, who is also managing a very close friend of Dusty Springfield. One Sunday night, literally on an impulse, I thought I should really go and see Dusty Springfield at somewhere called the Isoldo in North Street, Brighton. Went to interview in her dressing room. Dusty said to me, this is Vicky Wickham. I went, oh, really? She went, we're starting to do a new show and we're looking for a presenter. Would you be interested? And that became my first TV series. It was all live. There's no recordings of it exist. And it was called That's For Me. So now I'm in another world, and I'm going to Ready Steady Go every week, and and you all go out to meal artists, and then you all go to the Ad Lib Club, and there's the Stones and the Beatles and Michael Caine, everyone all around you, and it's suddenly in the midst of this extraordinary world. The end of the 60s and the end of the Beatles felt very much like the end of a chapter. Well, when the Beatles broke up, everyone was looking for who would be the band who replaced the Beatles. And then I realised it wasn't a band. It wasn't a band at all. It was David Bowie.
Ground control to Major Tom.
I'd been to see him play at the Dome in Brighton. He sat on a wooden stool and he sat wearing a pair of jeans and a white shirt, playing acoustic guitar. He was magnetic. You could not take your eyes off him.
Sitting in a tin can, far above the moon. Planet Earth is blue, and there's nothing I can do.
And I thought, this guy's the future. That was always what the music's always been about. Change. You've got to do something that sweeps away the past.
Oh, you pretty things.
suddenly this androgynous look, and blokes, very thin blokes, but dyeing their hair, bright colours, wearing makeup, which a few years ago would have been unthinkable. David Bowie was part of a great art movement. He was very involved with art on many levels. He was the man. And then he took this whole generation with him. That became the 70s.
You do, sweet, glad and black, don't look back, and I love you. You're dirty and sweet, oh yeah. Get it on, bang a gong.
Mark Bowie, he and Bowie were very, very close, and what is called glam rock was actually quite a short period of time. He was a very good friend. I remember him saying that they had to shorten the name of Tyrannosaurus Rex to T-Rex, so they thought that radio DJs wouldn't be able to pronounce it.
When your beard like a car, you got a hubcap, diamond star halo.
That's what has kept British music so exciting and refreshing, because someone comes along and changes it all again, and we seem to welcome those changes, which I don't think necessarily happens in other countries.
The 70s not only gave us glam rock, but rather more dubiously prog rock. And bundled up in that mainly regrettable genre was King Crimson, still special to me today.
This album arrived with an extraordinary cover, which was really quite scary. It was like a troll or something out of Grimm's fairy tales.
I wait outside the pilgrim's door with insufficient schemes.
I was absolutely transfixed by it, and I was so excited. I thought, I've never heard anything like this before. I remember the next day thinking, I want to put it on first thing as soon as I woke up to see if it's still as good as it sounded the night before, and it was. So then I was a passionate follower of this band, and I became very friendly with Robert Fripp, who's the main protagonist. That band was very, very important to me, and I became very evangelical about them, because I could hear things I had not heard anywhere before. That's what you're always looking for. I just want to hear something I haven't heard before. And that was certainly true of them. It's quite interesting that Kanye West sampled 21st century schizoid moments I absolutely love, and have brought that back to life.
Broken, the school's closed, the prison's open.
That sort of spans the eras between the two, to me, very brilliantly.
Everybody we rollin' with some light-skinned girls and some Kelly Rollins. In this white man world, we the ones chosen. So good night, cool world. I see you in the morning. I see you in the morning.
Do you want to go on to punk now? Brilliant. I think one of the reasons punk happened was because of the pomp rock. Self-indulgent, pretentious, long, awful, boring, long guitar solos. But when you got to the point where you have Rick Wakeman doing ice shows, this really was, really kind of ridiculous. That was when I think everyone went, enough. And meanwhile, you've always got a new generation of people coming along wanting to create their own music and do not want to be part of what is established and popular. I think that's what brought about punk. It's always been bubbling away for some years before the underground comes up and becomes the overground, or someone has a breakthrough hit and then the door is kicked open again, and then, you know, a whole generation comes rushing through. How do you shock people? You know, the Stones had done urinating against walls and, you know, would you let your daughter go out the Rolling Stone and all that. They'd shocked one generation. It was now quite difficult to be shocking because it'd all been done. How do you... What can you do now? We're also into a very difficult time for most people financially. The 70s was miserable. You know, music reflects what's happening. With the Sex Pistols, I mean, you kind of needed to have more than one band to create a movement. So, you know, we had the Sex Pistols and the Clash and many, many others. The Clash stood for incredible defiance. I mean, there obviously at school thought some people that Joe Strummer, son of diplomat, how could he have the proper working class credentials that you were supposed to have if you were going to be a credited punk band? But they were coming out with incredible music, incredible gigs. I mean, they were amazing to see them live, and that they were very much that was what they were about. I think with live, but had that kind of call to arms. You know, they captured that voice of the nation.
Co-founding member of The Clash, Mick Jones, represents that generation. I joined him in West London, where he was rehearsing with the newly reformed Big Audio Dynamite, to find out what had fed his musical passion.
So, is this a Clash cave?
Yeah, it's a Clashopolis. It's not only Clashopolis, but it's all the other stuff. It's like a personal collection running alongside a cultural collection of all the other stuff that went alongside it and what informed it, that came before it. And so I've been collecting since I was a kid.
People went to art college not to do fine art necessarily, but just to form bands and all that. Were you part of that?
Well, actually, all the people I liked had gone to art college, and so I knew I wanted to go to art college if I wanted to be in a band. The only reason I went to art college, honesty, is for the grant, which I used to spend immediately on amplification and guitar strings. All the people before me, in the generation before, had all gone to art college, all the people I liked, and so I knew that was my route to music, but I only went to music. But I did fine art, and then by the end of art college, I was doing the Clash. And they were going like, you've done any paintings? And I go like, yeah, look at my shirt. Music changes people's lives. You know, it was so great that we went so far from a council block to Untold, you know what I mean? And that wouldn't have happened before the 60s as well, because there was that class disassemblation, and that's what took us on to what happened with punk and stuff. When punk came in, it was about that anybody could do it for a start, and it was that do-it-yourself ethic, but also if the class barriers hadn't gone down in the 60s, that wouldn't have happened. You know what I mean? So it's like it's still connected, even though it was supposed to be the end of days and year zero. There was a big connection for a lot of us. We'd come out of that. We still studied and followed the counterculture. I wrote most of my best songs on the bus, you know what I mean? It's the rumble of the bus actually starts the tune, and then the next thing you know, it's like Jenny Jones or something. It was just written on the number 31 bus. I do need to kind of be able to walk around and stuff, and so I just like I try to look to the future. I always think it's like in the Second World War they had a gun that shot round corners, and I always think it's like the next thing I'm going to do if I go around the corner might be the really good thing, you know what I mean? So I try to keep looking forward, you know, in what I do. Yeah, the old ones are still the good ones. Thank you very much, thank you. Let's go.
BBC was very behind with punk. I'd been playing John Peel, had obviously been playing a lot of punk on Radio 1, but, you know, it was quite hard to get that music across.
At the time, the most significant music programme on television was the Old Grey Whistle Test.
When punk came along, punks hated it. They wanted nothing to do with the show as it was.
It was with great interest that I watched the piece of film that we're going to show in a second. It really was. I think it's an important piece of reference.
Bob Harris, who'd been a presenter, an unfortunate incident in a club with one of Sid Vicious's mates, and Bob's mate got glass in the face.
Bit of a surprise, that.
Bob went, this is not my kind of thing. It's not my kind of music. At which point the show was handed over to me. They said, would you like to become the presenter? And I hadn't have a problem with punk. So I went, yeah, that would be great.
Ladies and gentlemen, The Damned. Susie and the Banshees. The Skids.
I ended up presenting the show for 5 years, embracing not only punk, but introducing an eclectic variety of other acts.
Please welcome Elton John. You're not supposed to be playing at the Superdome New Orleans tonight. It's not you.
No. Some other Queen's playing there.
Gary Newman with Me, I Disconnect from You. First of all, I can remember the last time and first time I ever met you was in a hotel room, and you used to say then that if any of your band were found with dope on them, they were fired.
Yeah.
Have you stuck to that all these years?
I've bent the rules a couple of times, yeah.
I'm just happy today. I'm just happy.
These studios are haunted by The Who.
Let's go.
Every few years there is a peak artist, and this one happened through a label, through Stiff Records. Along came, to me, one of the greatest albums of all time was New Boots and Panties by Ian Dury and the Blockheads.
I could be the driver in articulated lorry. I could be a poet, I wouldn't need to worry. I could be a teacher in a classroom full of scholars. I could be the sergeant in a squadron full of wallers. What a waste. What a waste. What a waste. What a waste. Because I chose to play the fool in a six-piece band. First night nerves, every one night stand. I should...
One of the threads of my interest in music has been lyrics, like great lyricists, and words, lyrics or a line and song that really resonates with you and that stops you in your tracks.
Sex and drugs and rock and roll is all my brain and body need.
This guy's a poet, purely and simply. He's very, very well known. Now everyone knows the songs on that album. Things like Billericay, Dickie and Clever Trevor. They were all naughty. They were always going to be difficult to play on the radio. And there's a B-side called Razzle in My Pocket, which I got away with playing.
In my yellow jersey, I went out on the Nick. South Street, Romford, shopping arcade. Got a Razzle magazine, I never paid. Inside my jacket, and away double quick.
Fascinating character. Who'd had polio, who was, quite severely crippled. I think I didn't know the expression raspberry ripple before I knew Ian. And to become a sex symbol being a tiny guy who with a withered arm and who could hardly walk. That was quite something to achieve. I remember saying to him once, when did you realise that you actually had become famous and something's happened? He said, when you wrote about me.
In the deserts of Sudan and the gardens of...
I found a telegram from him saying, we couldn't have done it without you, or something quite amazing, which, you know, as he's quite a long time deceased, means a huge amount to me.
Hit me with your rhythm stick. Hit me, hit me. Je t'adore, ich liebe dich. Hit me, hit me, hit me. Hit me with your rhythm stick. Hit me slowly, hit me quick. Hit me, hit me, hit me.
I do think it was grossly unfair that he, having battled with polio, and then he died of cancer. It was just really, really not on. Pretty disappointed for him.
Hit me with your rhythm stick. It's nice to be a lunatic. Hit me, hit me, hit me.
It's interesting to me that maybe every few decades or generations, this desire to express your music with really original, witty lyrics, the opposite of what we call Hallmark greetings cards lyrics, as in, everything I do it for you.
Everything I do it for you.
Lazy. Cliche-ridden. And drones that I find it hard to believe that they've been number one for years. So sometimes it feels for years.
I feel it in my finger. I feel it in my toe.
It obviously works on some level that resonates with our audience.
Love is all around me, and so the feeling grows.
But I prefer something, you know, wittier, and we have it.
Dear Slim, I wrote you, but you still ain't calling. I left my cell, my pager, and my home phone at the bottom. I sent 2 letters back in autumn, you must not have got them. There probably was a problem at the post office or something. Sometimes I scribble addresses too sloppy when I jot them. But anyways, what's been up, man? How's your daughter? My girlfriend's pregnant too, I'm about to be a father. If I have a daughter, guess what I'm gonna call?
Obviously, it's come from hip-hop and rap, which is all about words and extraordinary. I mean, I'm a huge Eminem fan.
I know you probably hear this every day, but I'm your biggest fan. I even got the underground that you did with Scam. I got a room full of your posters and your pictures, man.
We've had a long period of dance music, instrumental music, which I love as well. But recently, there seems to be a great resurgence amongst what is loosely called the urban performers. It's brilliant, it's genius.
And it's only right you ain't feeling, let alone rating that. But babe, it's a fact, they told me the latest Mac. I had to live by that. I spend nights in your bridges flat. And I know that thought alone is ill. Left the next taste in your mouth like a drink on
Yeah, we bring the stars out. We bring the women and the cars and the cards out. Let's have a toast, a celebration, get a glass out. And we can do this until we pass out.
I rise up, be like a tractor. I rise up, be like a train. Choo-choo, go hard, go faster. Stack peas every...
To me, people like Tiny Temper, Tinch Strider, there'd be so many at Rex 32, there's so many joining in this incredibly rich period that we're going through in the UK. And there's a lot of wit going on.
My lifestyle's terribly wild, but you never catch me on the Jeremy Kyle show.
That line was enough to catch people's attention.
More women, more alcohol. Let's go.
Despite what some people thought, the 70s were really creative musically. Once I'd heard German electronic music, to me, it was like the invention of the atomic bomb. You could not uninvent it. I absolutely loved it. But from then on, there was always going to be this backlash of people talking about real instruments and thinking that synthesizers were something horrible. They're not. Electronic music just changed everything, and I knew it would.
She's a model and she's looking good. I'd like to take her home.
Kraftwerk are fated and honoured to this day for their contribution, and rightly so. We accept electronic music now, totally. Nobody goes, that's not a real piano, or that's not a real guitar. And I am amazed with the fact that a box of tricks, the electronic tricks, you could create that sound. Why wouldn't you? It's originality, to me, is what music should be about.
He's gonna step on you again.
So, wake up one morning and the beat has changed. That is what causes the main changes in popular music, is when the beat changes. We'd had this rock beat that had been going for 20 years or whatever, more, that had come out of blues. It was 1, 2, 3, 4. Now it was 1, 2, 3, and a 4. 1, 2, 3, and a 4. It became called acid house.
You're unbelievable.
Several DJs went on holiday to Ibiza and found that there were DJs in the clubs there which stayed open all night, which was unheard of in the UK. And they were mixing music together. They were mixing guitar music and flamenco with Chicago house music. And this became the basis of acid house. And so they came back from their holiday, as you do, in your holiday clothes, thinking, oh, well, that was great. Why can't we carry this on? And so the whole rave scene developed.
You're unbelievable.
One of the figureheads of this new musical movement that started in the late 80s was Primal Scream.
And they came to make this album called Screamadelica, which they put together in bits and pieces. But that became one of the defining albums at that time. Now, this lot were a Scots band that came to live in Brighton, who'd started out by being influenced by the Byrds, who were one of my first, hero bands. And so we all started to hang out together. They met a guy who was running a fanzine. He was a part journalist, part all sorts of things, called Andrew Weatherall. And they gave him this track that they were doing. And they said, would you like to do a remix of it? So he changed the whole thing and he put horns in and he put all kinds of things, completely changed it, and it became Loaded, which became the tune of that generation. That, Primal Scream, Happy Mondays, Stone Roses. If we had to have bands, then they were the bands. But they worked with DJs, and then they would put on an event where the DJ would play first, then they would play, and then a DJ would play till 5 o'clock in the morning. And people weren't used to this at rock gigs. It wasn't the thing to do. You saw the band, you went home. But this was like, no, you stay. And because of everyone was E'd up as well, they always stay awake.
Away, baby, let's go.
Acid House was very much about colour, and the main thing was that the DJ became the star. This was a new generation. Now we had this new drug called ecstasy, but the problem is nobody wanted to outlaw it. I don't think the police wanted to. They were all a bunch of ravers as well. The 90s were actually a bit like the 60s, exuberance, creative and very inclusive. It was just a wonderful party. And so there's this new feeling of camaraderie and love. This reminded me of the kind of 60s thing, but they weren't hippies. With the new heroes, who were DJs, not bands, new environments, which were raves or they were outside in fields, which then revived the whole idea of festivals. I was in Brighton where we had the Zap Club. So we had that kind of north-south, and in between, all around, these raves were happening.
The government's considering giving local councils new powers to control acid house parties.
On Saturday night, several policemen were hurt as they tried unsuccessfully to stop a party going ahead near Reigate.
The government were furious about it.
A bill to ban acid house parties has been given an unopposed second reading in the Commons.
The illegal parties, with tickets costing up to £30, have led to running battles with police. A barrage of complaints over noise levels, drug abuse and concern over inadequate safety and fire precautions. Government ministers support the bill.
I don't think it's stuffy or boring to tell young people to watch it.
It couldn't be worked. It was unworkable. To me, the effect of acid house, which is from, 1988, 87, 88 onwards, is still, the whole effect is still there. Much more so than punk, really, and yet it doesn't seem to be recognised. So that's my personal platform. This was the screen mix of Cassia's I Love You So. The second time I heard it, I thought this is genius. First time I heard it, I thought these squeaky girls at the beginning, I thought, I don't know, really, I don't know. But then I listened to it again, I thought, it's absolutely brilliant, it's genius. You've changed the music. I mean, are you aware of that?
There's a team of us, we've solidified a genre, we've brought a genre. Like a solid genre now that I think I can't see really going anywhere. It's not like it's sort of been proved it's not a fad.
Rhyme and dubstep, and has its resonance with people like Linton Kwesi Johnson, who's now recognised very much as a sort of godfather of dubstep and grime. Scream remixes to me are very special. He puts the gaps in. He's not afraid of silence. You know, most people are. So. You know, just wait. Everyone else is filling it up with so much tune and so much noise and so much rhythm and so much RPM. He would just make it completely silent. So here it is. It's taught me never ever to get disheartened, because something will come up through the cracks, up through the paving stone, as it has just done right now with grime and dubstep. You're going to play at Coachella. Tell me where the billing is for you, for Magnetic Man.
Yeah, we're on the same line as Lauryn Hill and just under sort of Kanye West, and I can't remember who else is headlining that night, but yeah, it's pretty.
So you're going stratospheric, which is very exciting. Supersonic girl. First album by Magnetic Man went into number 5 in the charts in late summer of 2010. I had a message on Facebook saying, oh, so dubstep's gone commercial then, so what's going to happen? I think, hang on, this is one band with one record going to number 5, so already, you know, they've been dismissed as having gone commercial. All those youth moves, that always happens. So that underground might stay underground. It may go overground, you know. And when it goes overground, I go, great, you know, they're off on their journey now. They don't need me anymore. This now is informing what goes forward. And so there'll be variations on that. Now everybody is playing dubstep, because that's changed the beat, see? That's like, Acid House changed the beat. House changed the beat. When that happens, it's a major step change when that happens. And so everyone then who's in, well, nearly everyone in contemporary music will become involved in it, because otherwise you sound really dated.
Annie Nightingale,
BBC Radio 1.
Life has taken me on the most extraordinary musical journey, and I've been fortunate enough to experience many changes along the way. I'm still passionate about finding new, talented people, and I hope that perhaps I can help some of them along the way.
I'm a freak, really. I don't understand why. The only other person I ever knew who was like this was John Peel, who had this passion for new music as well. And as he's no longer with us, I kind of feel like it's good to keep that flag flying as well, or someone who's, you know, of my kind of, his generation. I don't seem to forget tunes. I might forget a lot of other things, friends' names and stuff, but you don't forget a tune and what it is and when you heard it.
In 1980, Annie went to Tokyo on tour with the Police. Her film of that, next on BBC 4.
Sunday, New Year's Eve, we were home by 6 and celebrated with Schulz's.
I know what it means to know your loved ones are in need and in misery. We Jews, we have experienced it.
The surrender document was signed at 30 minutes past midnight. Many stood with tears of joy.
Experience Berlin's most fateful year through the eyes of those who lived it. Berlin 1945. Starts Monday at 10 on BBC 4 and iPlayer.
I've come to realize as a grandson of a Holocaust survivor that our stories bear witness to some painful truths, but they're also full of light, of truth, and of resilience.
Thank you for being with me today.
My Family, the Holocaust and Me with Robert Rinder. Starts Monday at 9 on BBC 1 and iPlayer.
To all officers, important official documents, important.
Take a look at this.
Does it mention me?
What are we saying?
Do you understand?
No.
I think you do.
Now we're getting warm.
Would you like to see a movie?
Good idea.
Last, I have something to write in my diary.
Great cinema has a new destination. Thursday Night Film Club on BBC 4.
She's championed youth culture and new music since the 70s. The excellent Annie Nightingale picks her favourite iconic performances from the punk and new wave years of the Old Grey Whistle Test at 5 to 1. And now on BBC 4, she's on tour with the power trio of Sting, Copeland and Summers.
The whole thing starts in St Catherine's Primary School in Cramlington in Northumberland, where I was a school teacher.
No, it doesn't. It starts off at St Albans City Hall, where I was playing with Curved Air.
And anyway, then we move on to Stuart and I meeting, and me discovering Stuart in some hippie group, the Curved Airs, and then we form the Police.
It all ends up with Sting wearing a silly hat.
And the script will be our interviews.
So hot. The song is called All I Wanna Be Is Next to You. I can't stand it for another day. But when you live so many miles away, nothing here is gonna make me stay. You took me over, let me find a way. I stole my house, I stole my motor too. All I want is to be next to you. I'd rob a bank, maybe steal a plane. You took me over, think I'll go insane. What can I do? All I want is to be next to you. What can I do? All I want is to be next to you.
This is what's known as jet lag after a 19-hour journey from London. We are here in Tokyo at the Shibuya Kokaido Hall, which I think is a reasonable pronunciation. Police are playing, and already you can sense that various numbers are pretty well known.